and welcome to
Dave.
That's him.
Dave.
And Mickey's Shiny Side Out on WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com and revolution.radio. It's home to fresh, unadulterated ideas and conversations in the chat room and a place to get your merch. I am in the chat room, I want to say.
Yeah, me too. I'm there too.
Hurrah for me. I haven't said. Oh, I did say ahoy, that's what I normally say. This is this show has a number, and it's 546. 640 and 500. Almost 550, which means almost 11 years. On the air, 11. Count it. 1, 2, 3, and all the way through to 11 years on the air. That's correct. You know it. It's true.
Look at you in the counting.
I've got a master's degree in counting. You can catch us on air, online, and on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a very stable of digital radio. It's really cool. If you missed the last show, that's okay. It's okay. I know you got these thoughts. Don't have them, because it's okay. You can just go and check out the archives on Freedom Slips. It's really awesome. And she was talking to Shaman Samson tonight. Shaman, yes, that's right. You had me right. That's pretty cool. And they were talking about a whole bunch of stuff: tensor rings, spirituality, and healing specifically. I missed it, but like I said, I can go to the archives.
How?
And I'll do it by going to the revolution.radio homepage. And right on there, right on top of that homepage, are a whole bunch of what used to be radio buttons, but now they're just drop-down menus. And one of them is called Archives, user-friendly. And you just pop in there, and then, in the middle of the screen is this blue hyperlink that says Enter Archives. Let's say you call it this. I just did that. I clicked on it. And then it comes up with a sign-in screen. Just sign in. Don't fill in anything. If you fill it in, that's on you. And then you're in the index of files. It looks like a Unix directory to me, potentially Linux, but that's okay.
It's that easy.
It doesn't concern you. And then, literally, each of the links you see, there's a hyperlink which will take you to the folder with the content that you desire. It's really cool. It's actually, Dave, I'll be honest with you, I'm scrolling through it. There's a bucket load of stuff here.
Oh, and it's crazy. All the shows?
All the shows. Shows and shows. And even of people that are no longer with us.
Yeah.
It's, of course, sad, but it's great because they're not really gone until they're gone, right? So you can still listen to their thoughts, to their ideas, some of the things they had to say, if that's what you like to do. Anyway, that's the archives. Now, used to be that they cost money. They no longer cost money. So it would be really great if you could find it within yourselves to donate any amount in any form of currency, Bitcoin, money order, cash, gold bars. I don't really care. I don't think the station does. So send it through so we can pay for the rivers and rivers of electricity we need to keep the machinery, the mills, to make the mills spin around. We need rivers of electricity. Wonderful rivers of electricity. So if you can afford to, and even better yet, go and tell your friends, tell your family. I tell people quite often what Dave and I do, and what Dave does, and that gives us new listeners once in a while, which is cool. But not just us, but the entire station. Now, before we start broadcasting at Unanga, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast. Dave?
Duck and Jung.
Thank you, and the Dharok people from me. And with that, we'd like to pay our respects to elders, past, present, and future. Now,
future.
Where to begin?
After you.
Well, one big thing, Mikhail Gorbachev, as you know,
yes,
he passed away. And he was the chief architect, I want to say, that brought about the end of the Soviet Union. He dismantled communism in Russia from the inside out. A few years after that, you might not notice, he ran for power again. So the Soviet Union collapsed, and there was a bit of hoo-ha, and then they had democratic elections. And that was the election that Boris Yeltsin ran. I want to say 95 or 96, I can't remember exactly. And Gorbachev also ran in that election. And he managed 0.5% of the vote coming his way. You know, one of the most powerful men in the world, a few years hence, managed to garner 0.5% of the vote. People were upset.
And I know why they were upset.
Right. I mean, in fact, Putin has called the collapse of the Soviet Union the greatest geopolitical disaster in the 20th century. The greatest geopolitical disaster or catastrophe. He might have said catastrophe. I can't remember exactly. Well, each to their own, and you know, well, it did remove the two poles of power as I knew them when I grew up. Dave knew them that way. Most of you youngsters there have no idea what I'm talking about. Didn't grow up in a world that was bipolar. Communism versus capitalism, good versus evil, red versus what's the color of capitalism? I don't know. what is it? Blue? Green? Green. It must be green, right? It has to be green.
Sure. I don't think it's green.
No, it probably isn't. But
you can call it green, but I don't think it's green.
No, it isn't. It probably isn't. But you know what? Serena Williams. I don't really talk about sports much, but I will in this particular instance. I'll tell you why. Because Serena Williams was a game changer when it came to global sports. Not tennis, not women's sports, but global sports overall. You might not know this, but her father actually had to leave his hometown. He came from the south. I can't remember which state he was in. But he was an activist. And when he was the age when she won her first Grand Slam, he had to leave his home state because the clan was after him. And his daughter now, of course, I think she's worth about $100 million, whatever. One of the greatest, if not the greatest tennis players ever. And that's what the male tennis players say as well as the female tennis players, right? I can't believe that she's been playing for 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember Martina Navratilova and playing in the British, what's it called? Wimbledon, that's it.
Yes.
Against Gabi, the German girl. I can't even remember her name, but I do remember that match, which was back in the 80s. So that's how old I am. But yeah, 27 years. But she changed it. She is a woman of color, obviously. And she had a lot of controversy. She had a lot of things go against her. I think because she's a woman and because she's of color.
Mm-hmm.
But she persevered. So that's the reason I mentioned it. And the reason I mentioned it as well. So all of us here on this station, as well as I would assume, I don't want to talk to you, my dear listeners, but I assume you also wish to change the status quo of the world that you inhabit or that you find yourself inhabiting at the moment. And she's one of those people that is changing it, in my mind, for the better. I mean, you can argue that she's part of the problem, but I don't think so. I think she worked really hard all her life, and she got to where she is through her hard work, and that's an exceedingly rare commodity these days. A lot of the rich people aren't quite like that. She is, and she is still, as is her sister, involved actively in changing the game, especially for girls entering sports, professional sports, but also people from disadvantaged backgrounds. So, for me, she's a great human being. I think that's my opinion. And I mention her here because she is part of the revolution that we all wish to see at some point. My opinion only, of course. There you go, Dave. That's what I think.
Yeah, well, that she's played her last game, and she didn't get the fairy tale ending that she was looking for. She bowed out, or she lost out. So it's interesting. It's the end of an era for her. Remember the movie that was about her and her sister?
I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I didn't watch it either. But there you go. But while I've got a talking stick, the Russia-Ukraine update, Germany pledges $200 million in new aid. Ukraine is putting on an offensive in the south. There's the possibility in the next week we might see the Belarusians, which is basically Little Russia, that's what it means, attacking from the north. They're doing some maneuvers with like 100,000 troops and weapons right up on the border, and we'll just see. Well, we'll let that page turn as it comes to it. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring up was the virus that no one wants to listen to anymore. I'm still here, it says.
There's a virus?
Yeah. What? Do you remember?
You're talking crazy, Dave.
Oh, I know. If you're going to accuse me of anything, that's it. Talking crazy.
Crazy talker. What?
Well,
viruses.
In Australia, there is almost a linear increase in background noise here from the virus that remains. And, in the last week, we lost 391 people to it, but we're not getting any press anymore. No press. And that's kind of equivalent to what it was like back in May, or a little bit more than May. So I've got the graph on the screen, and if I click off it, we'll see the world stats. And the world stats found a dip of 10,000 a week dying, and now it's leveling out at 15,000 a week. It's still going on. People are ignoring it. Very few people take any precautions whatsoever as far as the virus is concerned, and transmitting the virus or receiving the virus from somebody else. In public, very few. I wear a mask when I'm going to be in close contact with people, but other than that, like close quarters, not contact. I don't want to touch anyone. Yeah. But we're still seeing some crazy numbers of like 4.8 million in the world acquiring in the last week the virus. So there's talk now of a vaccine for the new Omicron versions, like BA5, I think, right? Which will get packaged up and delivered in the regular flu vax or something like that. I'm not sure how that's going to turn out yet. I thought that's really interesting. And the only other topic, which is not related at all, is the 30 million mosquitoes that are being released around the world, being bred to have a very short life, too short to replicate, but rather they attract the ongoing fertile population of mosquitoes in the area that they're released in, and they will receive from that active fertile population, they will receive a package. I'm trying to word it properly, and they will then pass away as a result of a very short lifespan. That way they kind of knock some of their population away. I think it's an interesting concept. We'll see if there's any ramifications, because I'm not sure if that is truly stringently tested for anything at all. The last place it was released shortly thence after was the Zika virus. So I'm not saying it caused it, not at all. Just at the moment it's correlative. And, we'll just have to see. But there's a new virus now. I didn't even know the name of it. It was just announced this week. There's a new virus coming out. Look, I've mentioned it before, and I just think, is this the era of viruses? How come there's so many? How do we let our guard down? How did this position come about? Was it simply just we had international travel and it was just about time that we were going to cross-infect all of us? Is it? I don't know. These are really good questions. I don't think they're ever going to get answered, and I'm not asking for answers. But I postulate that as we become more technically advanced, surely we can continue to live without the donation of the smallpox blankets, if you know what I'm saying. I think we should be wise enough to avoid this. Now, remember, we lived think about this, Becky. We lived prior to the coronavirus. We lived in a community of soup. We were all passing on all the viruses. We were all basically at the same point as far as all of those cross-contaminations were concerned. And then separating us actually started to breed individual little pockets. When we all got back together, some of those released into the environment again, and then we started cross-contaminating again. Now, I don't want the situation whereas, I decide to go on holidays around the world, just at least around Australia, because I haven't got the money to go around the world. If that was the case, and we were all left in little pockets, I can only imagine that we would just be running an infection. What's it called in American football? Like running the offense. You'd be just going through, shedding virus everywhere. A virus that they hadn't seen yet. That's if we were all separated. So I think there's kind of a reason why we need to be all, in one big soup, to mix all these viruses together and become immune to them. Because locking ourselves away, you end up losing all this immunity.
Look, you're 100% correct, and we know what happens then. Look, like you mentioned smallpox earlier, and of course these populations of the Americas, of Asia, of the Pacific Islands and other Africa too, they hadn't been in contact necessarily with Europeans for a long time, and European Asians had been more or less in contact, so they were more or less immune to each other's diseases. But once the Europeans went into the Americas, even Australia, they brought the diseases with them, with the populations, because they had been isolated, referring to your soup, right? They died. They died by the millions. And you're correct. We cannot afford not to be cross-immunized, if you will, in the world, if we want global travel, right? The thing is this, though. More and more new pathogens are going to appear, right? And the reason for that is because there's a number of reasons. One, we are starting to explore and exploit areas of the world which further up to this point we hadn't. Deep jungles, deep mountain ravines, hard to get to places on islands, etc., etc. So we're starting to mine and log in areas which we didn't before. So we hadn't touched, that area. And so entire ecosystems exist in those areas, and viruses and bacteria are part of that ecosystem to which we have no defense. So we will see more and more things like Ebola or Marburg or even the monkeypox come our way. Secondly, so that's one, right? These are living viruses today in environments as they exist, and people just haven't been exposed to them because they're so far away. But the second and more worrying group of, again, pathogens, bacteria, viruses, and maybe other forms of microbial life, I don't know, are to be found in areas of the world which are now, for the first time in maybe 10, 15,000 years, are becoming accessible to us again. I'm talking about the melting glaciers, the melting permafrost, the tundras, because they were locked in ice for thousands and thousands of years.
The permafrost is really bad,
Yeah, and not only that, even when it's not melting, we've got scientists that are drilling really deep into the ice, right? Getting ice core samples out. Oh, look, I found some kind of biological, single cellular organism.
Yeah.
I'm going to revive it.
Let's do that.
Said the last man on Earth. and before you know it, these diseases, and look, I don't want to sound all doom and gloom, but the unfortunate truth is we're all stupid. As a race of people, we're stupid. And these viruses are going to get out because they exist. They're out there. Are we immune to them? Maybe some, maybe others not. I don't know. I do fear, though, that there will be some there that will completely stump us, and there will be some significant impact on us. If you think that this recent pandemic was something, one in a 100-year pandemic, I believe, and this is actually what scientists are saying, that we're going to have something like this every 2 or 3 years now.
Oh.
And in my estimation, I think it's going to be a lot worse, because the thing is this, Dave, right? This goes back to globalism as well as the way the world is changing around us. So we're going into deeper and deeper, darker areas, if you will, for resources.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of melting going on. And there's still this global culture that we have, which I thought, I'll be honest with you, Dave, I thought it would go away. I thought after the experiences we've had over the 3 years of the pandemic and the shutdowns and the supply chain disruptions, I would think a lot more countries would start producing things inside their country. That hasn't happened, surprisingly.
No. If you just wait it out, it'll all get better, right?
That's exactly the attitude.
Yeah.
Because it's cheaper. Make more money. People make more money if they don't. Anyway, don't get me started, but it hasn't happened. So, the pandemics that we know, I mean, we had a pandemic back in the early 20th century, as you recall, the Spanish flu, right? It coincided with the end of World War I and killed many, many, many people. It would have killed a lot more if we had been a global civilization then, but, mercifully, it didn't. And then 100 years later, we have another, almost exactly 100 years later, we have another pandemic. And you think, okay, well, this is obviously only happening every 100 years or so. That's great. I don't think so, because of the way the world is changing and the way our civilization works, the way we all operate. And look, I'm not saying all listeners out there, I'm not saying you're globalists traveling around everywhere and whatnot. But I'll be honest with you. In my team, I have directly people from the Philippines, right? But I also work very closely with people from the United States, from Europe, from India, right? All across Australia, of course. So this is just my company, right? These are people I work with on a daily basis, and sometimes there's travel, right? So we are all quite intertwined, as it were.
Yeah.
And the conditions are different everywhere. I talk to my people in the Philippines quite a bit. Once like that, once like this. Okay. Recently, they had a horrendous storm come through.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't good. But the point is, we live differently to the way we used to live, and we're facing dangers we didn't have to face before. Right? I'm not even talking about man-made dangers, Dave. I'm not even talking about war. None of that. But there is such a thing as climate change. It is happening. Diseases are being released from the earth, right, on purpose or by accident, doesn't really matter. And we have to face that. So, yeah, every few years, I would say, Dave, we're going to face something like this.
Well, it's part of the Great Reset. If we will all just follow the plan.
If we all were concentrated, you're right. If we all let's say we all concentrated in populations, and it's like we all live, not all of us, but the people that they don't own anything anymore. They're living in these mega cities. Oh, in fact, have you heard of the Wall?
Yeah, that's right. That's in Saudi Arabia.
Well,
100-mile long building.
Yeah, it is. It's actually in I want to say United Arab Emirates. It's not Saudi Arabia.
Oh,
let's say Qatar, or I think it's Qatar. Is it Qatar? Yeah, it's one of those. The Wall. It's a building. Essentially, it's 200 miles long.
200 miles, 160 kilometers, and it's mirrored finish.
Yes, correct. And I think it's 20 or so stories high plus 200 meters wide. So what that is it houses, of course, millions of people. It's designed in such a way there are parks inside and whatever. So it's
a high-speed
massive
rail.
Population. Yeah. It's everything. I mean, it's phenomenal. I mean, it hasn't been built yet, mind you. Doha, Qatar, I think.
There you go.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is, it's in the Middle East, right? And they're really trying to do this new thing. But what it does, of course, it increases population density, right? So you're freeing up the landscape, if you will, right? But you're really bringing people together very closely, right? In my opinion, if somebody got sick in a place like that, I reckon people would get sick very quickly across everything else, right? So that's really
imagine the expansion joints that are required. in
Oh,
that
dude.
because any movement of the Earth and the building's broken.
Well, that's the thing because it's so long,
I
right? And
know.
that's yeah. But look, hey, I mean, I'm sure smarter
Hey,
people
who am
than
I?
us.
Maybe not. Maybe
Maybe
not.
not.
So,
Let's just hope they are, Dave.
Neki,
Let's just
I'm
hope.
aware of. Remember the airport in Hong Kong that was built out in the ocean on reclaimed land.
Yeah.
It replaced Kai Tak Airport, which I've landed in the
Yeah.
simulator. And a lovely, lovely glide path on that through the buildings, and then a
Yeah.
big right hand U-turn, and then down towards the airport. Great, crazy. Anyway, so the airport that was on reclaimed land is actually every single support column beneath what you see above ground has a hydraulic jack, and they use those jacks to keep the floor level.
Yep.
Did you know that?
Yeah, actually, yeah, yeah.
All right.
You have to.
Well, yeah, because you want a floor to be flat and it's moving all over the place, subsiding here and whatever, right? So yeah, you would need the same thing across this crazy long, 160 kilometer, 1,600 feet tall, mirrored vertical city.
Yeah, it's. I mean, as a feat of engineering, it is astounding.
It says
right?
Saudi Arabia is planning to build an entire city. That's what it says.
It's Saudi Arabia, but they're not building it inside. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Well, I don't know. I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah. I mean, look, they've got the cash to do it, which is great, and more power to them. But Dave is right. There are many, many engineering obstacles to overcome, and God forbid there be an earthquake somewhere, right?
Yeah, if you got a shear across it.
Oh well, see, I mean, you would have to segment it like they segmented the Titanic or other ships. It's where if one fails,
absolutely have to have fire barriers all the way along as well.
Yeah,
and they'd all have to be closable.
Yeah, I mean, you could have the population of a country, a small country, but you can have the population of a country living in there.
Look, if this is successful and you've got farming inside it and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Imagine, Dave, if they could do it in Australia. Let's say, for argument's sake,
I know, right?
So we built a city from Brisbane to Perth, like that, so across Australia.
Nearly 4,000 kilometers, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but once you build 200, why not 4,000?
That's right.
The difference, right? I mean, ultimately, if you've solved the engineering challenges for 200 kilometers, everything else is just a matter of scale or scaling up, scaling down, right? But once the challenges are solved for 200, then you can build it as big as you like.
Well, I dare suggest that on the other side of the wall from the onslaught of the traditional source of wind, because in every latitude there's 4 different separations of wind in different directions, and for the most part in Australia where they come from the west and go to the east, so the moving shifting sands would build up on one side of that because the air would be slower and the particles would fall out of the air and deposit themselves on one side of that. Be crazy.
In fact, think about this for a second. What would happen if you would create inadvertently or deliberately, I don't know, but you would create a microclimate completely new to this area of the world, and you wouldn't know because you couldn't what the impact is. You just couldn't know the impact because it's never been done before, right?
That's right.
So what will change? And this is slightly off kilter, but
which is not unusual for us.
No, that's right. But if you were to think of it as a sail, Dave, just a sail, right? Which is hit by wind. Right? Now, I'm not saying this particular one is big enough to make any changes, but could it? If we were to build bigger and longer buildings of this nature, right? Would that somehow speed up? I mean, accelerate or slow down the rotation of the Earth? Is that a possibility, or is it just not at all big enough to happen? I mean, I don't have the answer for that, but whenever you put something big like that into the world, you got to really ask yourself, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Is this going to work, or am I just shooting myself in the foot? Right?
Look, I look forward to seeing how this turns out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Certainly, if everyone's inside a long building like this, you're a sitting duck for people who are going to prey on you.
Oh,
I wonder where they are.
yes,
I think they're in
yes.
that building. Really?
Oh, all of them? Yes, sir. Why would they do that?
Yeah, don't know.
It's one of the great mysteries. But you are becoming a sitting duck, if you get my meaning.
Yeah, it's like hiding in a cave.
It's quite it's it's.
Well, if there was a large tsunami, they'd all be gone because of the location that they're planning on building it is only like a couple of meters above sea level. So
exactly. So look, I mean, we're going to see more of these things, and I'm sure over time, and certainly. Is this something we should be doing? You know what? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not.
Good for them. If they, I don't mind.
Yeah.
Sure, it proved me wrong. It's a terrible statement, but prove me wrong. And I'm going to take a segue. I'm going to take a segue here. So, I've spoken before about NASA going into space again, but with their own rocket. It's not reusable. There's no reusable parts. Everything breaks up in the atmosphere. The only thing that has the people in it is a little tiny capsule. That's it. And it takes them back 40 years 50 years to the moon launch. Oh no, it's instead of it being a Saturn rocket, it's an Orion rocket. And it's now got booster rockets on the side. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
There is no discernible difference in the way that they... So Elon Musk is using very, very good tech to be able to land rockets on its butt and be able to reuse things within hours. And that's the way he's going forward. But he's being restricted by the authorities so that he can't prove his rocket can get to the moon, and they want this to get there first. But the launch is killing me here because it's at like 3:00 in the morning and it's been scrubbed 2 attempts in a row. And I can't do it anymore. It's okay Friday and Saturday night. But I can't do it again. Not on a school night. I can't do it on a work night. I just can't do it. I don't have the energy. And if they can't get their tech together, it's going to hurt them.
Yes.
So all this money that they've spent, absolutely reputation damage in this.
It's phenomenal. It's you go, So, but the thing is, this, like Dave said, and this is really important to understand, fundamentally, right? We're using the same tech as we did back then, right? There's really not much difference in the tech. So what's the problem here? Well, we haven't used it in such a long time. We don't really know what it is we're doing anymore. Can you just wrap your head around that? I mean, that's like, what? Really? Oh yeah. We don't know what we do. We have to relearn it again in many ways.
Well,
right?
maybe this time they're not going to throw away all the telemetry they had.
Well, that would be a good idea, Dave. That would be excellent.
Yeah.
Let's keep some of the knowledge we had.
And this one's unmanned. It has the equivalency of people on board, but they're just dummies, and they're going to fly around the moon, and then they're going to come back, and let's do, Apollo 8 again, because we forgot.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Look, again, and I've recently reread the article I wrote for Nexus, but which Nexus decided not to publish. It doesn't matter. Anyway, but it's really good. And it's dealing with the moon. And I asked the question in there, well, why didn't we go back for 50 years? What was it that we found or didn't find or whatever, right? And I think that's a fair question, to be honest with you, because it is such a long time not to go somewhere, because you've been there. So why not go there? What's holding us up?
Well,
why this hiatus of 50 years? 50.
Yeah. Well, do you know, I think the importance of going back with people on it is the ownership of the moon.
Yes.
That's it. I do believe that's the imperative here. And there's proof everywhere that there's, O3, there's a frozen water. I think it's a reasonably good suggestion that they're going to put something in orbit around the moon and build a small space station there for launches. They're going to mine the moon for fuel so that they can, take off from Earth light and go there and then fill up, so to speak, and then away they go. But this disposable equipment launch vehicle is just nuts. It's tea bags. It's teabag mentality.
Yeah.
You throw everything away.
I thought in 50, honestly,
yeah,
I would have thought in 50 years we could have come up with something better. It's like the realization that you have when you're a physics major or maybe engineering student that we all we're doing is really our steam engines have gotten a lot bigger.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's really, nuclear energy. No, we don't have nuclear energy. No. We use nuclear energy to heat up water
and run a steam engine.
That's it. It's the biggest steam engine you can imagine. Steam engine it is though. Okay, that's what it is. It's nothing but a steam engine. And in 50 years, and this is in fact interesting as well. I mentioned in my article, which I have to tell you, it's really good. I'm going to send it to you again. Every other field of science has either been disappeared, that's okay, or has made enormous advances. The power, the computing power that you carry, or not just you, but most people carry on the Apple Watch or Android Watch or whatever. It's not a brand mark. It's not a trade or brand I'm going to highlight here, but the point that we have it is more powerful by magnitudes than all the computing power NASA had to send the first rockets to the moon.
That's right.
Magnitudes. Magnitudes more powerful. But no, that doesn't seem. Communications. We have instantaneous communications around the planet, right? But our rocket technology, and mind you, this rocket technology is really left over from World War II, because it took the German scientists that came across in Operation Paperclip to America, and then whatever the Russians called their operation to Russia, that actually built those rockets. Werner von Braun, we all know, he was a Nazi. He worked for the Nazis.
That's right.
He had Nazi slave labor in Germany.
Operation Paperclip.
I'm not saying he was an ideological Nazi. He was just an opportunist. He said, these Nazis are going to pay for my rocket research. Awesome. He would have worked for anyone, to be honest.
As long as you're paying for my research.
As long as you're paying for my research. But nothing's, maybe I'm being harsh, but it doesn't seem like we have made great strides in this field.
Who has? Elon Musk.
Well, Elon Musk has, but the thing is, we're discussing ion engines. Right? We're discussing different forms of propulsion, and people have built working ion engines, as it were.
It almost defies physics.
Yeah, but
there doesn't appear to be any way of anything doing anything, but there it goes, it works. So the fuel, rather than the Saturn rocket, which used, not TERPs, the other one. Oh, my head. Kerosene, thank you. So it used kerosene and liquid oxygen, and that was good. But this one uses hydrogen and oxygen. and that's what it's burning. So maybe it's a little cleaner, but it makes no difference. Again, this week there was a story that I saw. I may as well just talk about it. In California, there was an order issued to the people of California to not charge their electric vehicles overnight.
What?
Yeah, because
Really?
of that they're in all sorts of dire needs with power.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, and I think the importance of that message is that the power grids aren't made for 24/7, 100% output. And think about the overnight we call it off-peak here, and we have shoulder on either side of the off-peak. And then we have the daily cost, which is really high because they've got to run everything to be able to supply the power during the day. But because most people are asleep, they're not doing very much. But if we all had electric vehicles, there wouldn't be enough power in the grid in the off-peak to supply all the EVs with their power. So what would end up happening is the off-peak would become the peak as well. We'd just have a peak around the clock. And we'd be actually emitting more CO2 than we are now in power generation.
Well, yes.
So
but it's green. It's green, Dave.
It's so green. How green? Emerald green.
It's the greenest.
That's a Fifth Element quote there. So, it kind of disturbs me. At the same time, no, I get it. Europe's power grid is broken right now, and you may as well call it dead and buried. There was a great meme that described it. It's because
it's going to be
the energy sharing that was occurring there when everyone was holding hands and singing Kumbaya, despite attempting to not do that at the same time. I still hate you, but I need power. Now it's, oh man, do I have to still use their power? Yeah, because we turned off our coal. That's Germany. Yes. We turned the coal off because then we wanted to go green, and now we kind of need that coal back again.
I want green coal. I want green coal.
I want green coal. Remember the clean coal thing that never happened because it was all a lie?
It didn't really. No, it didn't.
We can filter 5% of the emissions out of it. That's cleaner.
Yeah.
Is that good?
I don't know where you're going with your ers there. No, look, but no, it's not to be.
It's a matter of time, though, Meki, before the nuclear topic comes up in Australia again.
Oh, and look, you're 100% correct.
Takes 10 years to stand one up, though, so good luck with that.
Well, do we have a... Yeah, look, you're right. That is the truth. The problem, of course, that we have here, not just Australia, but in general, is that we're not well equipped to handle our future requirements, right? We need new energy sources. We have to have them. We can stand on our head and say, no, it's going to be fine. It's not. No, it isn't. Our energy consumption. So people say we are addicted to oil. That's not true. Or fossil fuels. Not entirely true. We're addicted to electricity. That's what we're addicted to.
That's what we are.
Right now, yes, our cars are internal combustion, but we're just as happy to drive them with electricity. But everything else in our lives, pretty much, requires electricity. Right? I mean, yes, there are instances. Of course, you're right. There are instances where we heat with fossil fuels. Yes. We cook with gas and all that, sure enough. We heat with, coal or gas. Yes, that's all true. But if you switched electricity off, our civilization would stop. It just overnight, it would cease to function. Because all critical infrastructure, anything critical at all, in fact, relies absolutely on electricity. It's just how it is. I'm sorry, if you think that's not the case, but it absolutely is. That means, of course, that we need to find ways to get electricity, right? And that has proven exceedingly difficult. We try to get it here and there and everywhere, but it's not something we haven't cracked that one yet. everybody. We don't know we're clear. We know we're close. We think we do. We think we know what we're doing, but the truth is no, not really, because everything we have tried is either more polluting or more expensive, and expensive is no good, because if it's expensive, then we can't really use it, because everybody wants to make money still, right? And this is another problem, of course, that we have this marriage to having a need for profit. Our culture thinks we have to make profit on everything, which is of course nonsense. We don't. Right?
There used to be a term that people used, Mackie. This is called cross-subsidization.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how the news on TV used to be paid for.
Yeah.
Was from the profit from all the other shows. They didn't have sponsors, but now, you know, I watched the news report in America and a morning program, and they had the Pfizer logo up there on the wall. And I thought that was maybe a bit of a conflict of interest, but, you know, look, I'm not a regulator, so I'll be quiet. Right? So do we all think that that's okay? I wonder. How long until, you know, Pepsi owns the K-12 in America, like in The Simpsons?
Not much longer.
The answer is Pepsi. Partial credit.
Yeah. Oh, Pepsi forever. Oh, look, we got a believer. We got a believer. It is interesting to watch these developments, right? Because no one is looking at the core issues. Nobody's trying to actually solve anything. Right?
Because that's scary, Mackie. You get people offside when you try to solve something.
Unless you're living in a country that is run by a dictator of some sort, benevolent or otherwise, you really can't get anything done. The reason the Chinese are getting things done, because they don't have to worry about being elected.
They abolished the opposition, so that's good.
You know, they have these 5 and 10 year plans. When was the last time?
I'm going to segue off this. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, America, US, Europe, any of those democracies had a 10-year plan. Go on, Dave. I mean, I don't remember.
You know, I laugh, Mackie, at China, you know, about my statement about them, you know, getting rid of their opposition. I saw this week, a Joe Biden speech, which kind of shocked me a little. Because it was the end of democracy as I saw it being portrayed, because he said that the MAGA hat wearing, you know, and because they're Democrats, Republicans, are a right-wing extremist organization, and that he considers them terrorists. And
what?
He was, yes. I'll send you some links. It's crazy. And he may as well he could have very well had a very small moustache in his speech. And it was kind of a little frightening, to be honest with you, because you're calling your opposition the enemy, but in a way that was, well, like maybe they all need to be arrested. And that's not, if you're in power with an opposition, you should be giving them kudos for taking that stand.
But that's the thing. As soon as you call for the arrest of your opposition, because they don't agree with you, that's no longer democracy. But America has been a fascist in the country for some time now. But to be that open about it, I mean, the thing is this.
I nearly fell off my chair.
The very nature of specifically America is that you will have an opinion that other people don't like. It's inevitable. It's just a thing. It's a thing, and everybody goes, that's popular because we got a democracy, right? So of course you will have people. People will hate Trump. Good. People will hate Barack Obama. Good. People will hate Joe Biden. Good. That's not a bad thing, right? I mean, hate in general is not a good thing. But the point is, of course you will have something to say about that and be upset with your opposition. But you do not arrest them. Welcome welcome to Germany, 1933.
Yeah, that's all I could see.
Yeah, I don't like the cut off his chip. What? Yeah, not German. I don't like where this guy's going. Really? Really? What you gonna do? I'm gonna arrest him. Just protective custody is what they're calling it. Oh, okay. That's okay then. For his protection. Yeah. Of course. What else would it be? Of course, it's for his protection.
Yeah. Well, it's a nice angle, but
no, it's a nice
still
angle,
shocking.
Right? It's unbelievable. It is. I mean, again, I have to see it, right? But ultimately,
do watch it.
Yeah. It's just that's wow. Yeah, because I mean,
he had the black and red theme going on.
If someone is classified as an internal domestic terrorism organization or whatever, okay, all right, fine, right? I mean, but when the Klan is still operating, the militias are still operating in the States. Well, there are very few actually listed organizations in the United States that can't operate. There are very few that cannot operate in the United States. But wow. Hey, maybe his Alzheimer's medication is worn off. Remember when Ronald Reagan said, he was like saying mock launching the nuclear missiles on the podium? He thought no one was watching, but he was just press the button, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. You remember that? Most of our listeners probably don't. It's a long time ago, but he did.
That's right.
He did do that. Was he actually going to do it? Well, no, I don't think so. But that was his mindset, right? A little terrifying, if you ask me.
But him and Gorbachev, they cooked up peace, and that's why Gorbachev was disliked, because he went against everything that Putin is for.
Yes,
and that rallied to become the enemy of Russia.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. In fact, I'm surprised he wasn't assassinated. To be honest.
Yeah, that's right.
When Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat signed a peace treaty,
Anwar Sadat was killed by his own dudes.
Yeah, so was Menachem Begin.
Yeah,
they were both killed by their own people.
You can't have peace in the Middle East, you idiot.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it'll never happen. But you see the issue that exists there. But with Putin, he was a young KGB officer when it all collapsed.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe not that young, but I guess young enough. And it would have affected him in the most negative way possible, obviously, right?
Yeah.
He would have hated. He didn't go to his funeral.
Yeah, that's right.
That?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
I'm not going to that guy. I'm not going to that guy for that. He's a loser. And I understand the sentiment. I understand why he wouldn't want to go, because this is in his mind that guy's a traitor. Yeah,
that's exactly right. Yeah.
Sold us out.
Yeah. But I thought we had a good world there for a while. But let's bring back autocracy and just rule the world until we wipe each other out. I think that's
Dave. We're only 100 years from the empires. Since the fall of the empires, the Russian Empire, the British Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the German Empire. This the only really collapsed about 100 years ago. It's not that long ago, right?
You know what that sound is? That's the end of the first hour of episode 546 of David Mackey's Shiny Side Out. It's only a very short break. Use the time to donate or buy some merch from the website, and we'll be back shortly with Human-Animal Hybrids Part 2.